Note that because this is 9 minus 6 root 2 inside, and this is 9 plus 6 root 2 inside, we cannot combine the two square roots. Then what should we do? Well, remember, when you have square root of 5, for example, we could just go ahead and simply take the square and the square root of it. And of course, that's because that square sign and the square root sign cancels out, leaving us with what we started with. So let's use this concept on this problem. So what we're going to do is we're going to start by taking the parentheses of the whole thing, making it a one complete expression. And then we'll take the square of it. But as I showed you here, if you take the square of it, you have to go ahead and take the square root as well. Then to simplify this, let's go ahead and rewrite that as square root of 9 minus 6 root 2 plus square root of 9 plus 6 root 2 times the same thing since it's squared. When we multiply something like this, we'll take what's in the front, meaning this, or square root of 9 minus 6 root 2 times what's in the front here. Same thing, square root of 9 minus 6 root 2. When we multiply these two, you don't want to do any math. And the reason is this. For example, if you have root 117 times root 117, would you do any math here? No, of course not. When these two numbers are same inside the square roots, the answer is 117, or what's inside the square roots. So for that same reason, when we multiply this times this, which are exactly the same, and they're both inside the square roots, the square root sign here and the square root sign here cancels out, giving us 9 minus 6 root 2 without that square root sign. Remember, this square root sign is the square root sign that's outside, that covers everything. Next, we're going to take the first one, or the front one, multiply to the second one right here. And remember, if I have square root of a times square root of b, that equals square root of ab, meaning we could put these two square roots under one square root. And that's what we want to do. When we have that square root of 9 minus 6 root 2 and square root of 9 plus 6 root 2, we want to go ahead and put them under one square root like this, but not multiply. So again, I have that 9 minus 6 root 2 from here, and then 9 plus 6 root 2 from here. And you might be thinking, where did that 2 come from? Well, that came from this. If I take the second one, meaning the square root of 9 plus 6 root 2, times square root of 9 minus 6 root 2, it's exactly the same as the first one times the last one, and hence the reason we have 2, because they're exactly the same. Next, if we multiply the last one here, the square root of 9 plus 6 root 2 times, again, square root of 9 plus 6 root 2, notice what's inside. 9 plus 6 root 2 and 9 plus 6 root 2 are the same. And using the same concept that we had here, that root 117 times root 117 is 117, we're just going to get rid of the square root signs and write what's inside the square root, or 9 plus 6 root 2. Next, since we have that plus 6 root 2 and the minus 6 root 2, let's get rid of that first. Also, 9 plus 9 is 18. So we're going to go ahead and put 18 instead of the 9 plus 9. And then we are going to copy exactly the same thing here, down here. Let's continue by simplifying what's in here. First, we're going to do 9 times 9. So we end up getting 9 times 9 here. Next, 9 times plus 6 root 2 is going to be plus 54 root 2. And then minus 6 root 2 times 9 is going to be minus 54 root 2. And then lastly, minus 6 root 2 times plus 6 root 2 is going to be minus 6 root 2 times 6 root 2. Notice that plus 54 root 2 and the minus 54 root 2 will cancel each other out. And then of course 9 times 9 is 81 right here. And then if you do 6 times 6, we end up getting 36. And then root 2 times root 2 is going to be 2, or we end up with 72, which I wrote here. 81 minus 72 is 9. And then if we take the square root of 9, meaning square root of 81 minus 72, that is, we're going to get 3. And of course, that 2 is that 2 right there. And then if you do 18 plus 2 times 3, where 2 times 3 is 6, we end up with square root of 24. And then square root of 24 is 4 times 6. So if we take out the 4, we end up with that 2, and then the root 6 right there. Meaning, 2 root 6 is going to be our final answer. Or if we start with this and simplify, which is not easy, we end up with a simplified format or final answer of 2 root 6.